Hello, Mike.
Hello, Jack. It's Wednesday this time, and we
Yeah,
both were saying how it's a little bit warmer here in Chicago, which
mm,
I'm grateful for that.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's finally above freezing. Yeah, that's great.
I know it's kind of I know Fahrenheit. My friend is just like telling me that it's 16 degrees in Portugal or something, and I have no concept of centigrade or something. So there's
That's
that.
nice. 16 is nice. That's
Well,
almost
see, there you
t-shirt
go.
weather.
It's maybe that's a big topic we can unpack about the difference of concept because when you go from 0 to 40, like that seems insurmountably large amount of numbers, right? 40
Mm,
numbers from one to the other, and yet
mm,
it's brisk. You know what I mean? Like it's fine. It's great. I don't know, 45, I guess, whatever it is outside
mm,
right now, but it's fine. But when you're
mm,
zero, right? If it's negative 20, I always say, well, it's still sucks. You know what I mean? If it's 20, it still sucks. So maybe it's just the
mm,
penchant we have for fine-grained nonsense, whereas
mm.
the rest of the world is like, it's not that big of a deal. 16 to 17 is probably a bigger deal, right? 16 to 20, I think, probably is from hell to paradise, right?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I my
I don't know either.
perception my perception is still centigrade, and the same like with with the imperial system versus metric. You know, yeah, I know that exactly. The distances in meters and centimeters, but in inches, I have to really think about a mental model of that. So yeah.
Yeah, as you should, because it was the king that decided what an inch was. Remember, it was always about more command and control
Mm.
than whatever. Like, wasn't it the length of somebody's femur was supposed to be important at one point? I don't know. Maybe that's just a random random fact. But yes, that it was arbitrary. I had this just happen the other day because I'm really interested in nutrition. And oftentimes, all the serving sizes are in grams, right? And it says,
Mm.
hey, here's 100 grams. And I realize I really don't have any idea what 100 grams is.
Mm.
I might understand a kilo, or I guess I understand 5 pound bags of flour, or either
Mm.
way, it is very interesting to have a mental model, which is a
Mm.
big,
Oh yeah.
it's a big term in my profession, right? Is to understand mental models. And I think our
Mm.
discussions are informing each other's mental models because I still don't know how
Mm.
this stuff works.
Mm.
But I feel as though if I could explain it to myself, if my mental model was robust enough, that I would be better off with your help, as always.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the old age discussion in AI of scruffy versus neat, right? A mental model is that kind of kind of general, not really
Yeah,
well defined kind of a thing. Whereas neat would be kind of I remember a formula and I have a formula for how I feel, right?
it's a good point, right? And I think the most recent article I just published was about this idea of numeric measurement, my favorite, right, which is qualitative versus quantitative. So
Mm,
quantitative things, even when incorrect, or let's just say misleading, are often considered more trustworthy
mm,
for some reason, right? It's just like you said, it's God, we're just saying this with temperatures, right? Like 40 is more comfortable than 0 is fine for us. If you were in the Arctic, right, you would be like, God, if it was 0, what paradise would that be? You see, it's
mm,
very relative how people feel about numbers.
mm,
But feelings themselves are like comfort, security. These are the things that actually are big motivators to work. And I think today we were going to try to tackle the fun topic
mm.
of productivity. I will say that the CEO of Microsoft came out today confirming uh, anti-Microsoft sentiment that, and by the way, we should be sponsored by Microsoft. It would be funny, but they finally said that AI has had no measurable impact, Which I was like, okay, finally, good. Thank you for finally mentioning that all of this stuff is in preparation for something that has not yet happened, right? I don't know if you agree with his assessment, though. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I don't. I mean, there's so many things that are possible now that I really, don't. I mean, maybe the meaning of that statement that, hey, there was maybe no measurable or very small measurable impact is that they are anticipating a big blow up of AGI or something where really kind of the AI is going to take over. That will be beyond measurable because it will be kind of like singularity, right? I mean, you cannot measure an infinite increase of AI
Well, can I
capabilities,
stop
right?
you? The taking over part, I think, is really interesting to unpack because I also got into a little bit of a side chain about agentic stuff, but I'm going to go there in a second. But what would, again, AI taking over, like, what would that even mean? It has no meaning, I don't think, because you still you have to be able to make autonomous decisions about something impactful, right?
Well, I mean, there used to be something called trickle down economics, right? So if you look at the recent things that are showing up on the market, like the research co-pilots, right? Like it's not just code development copilot, it's not just chat system, but now AI will help you with your research papers and really something that is potentially very significant, right? So if this trickles down into something very significant, where we can do a lot more research that is very relevant to some critical areas, like, hey, fusion, right? I mean, if would it be kind of cool to have unlimited energy from hydrogen, and there is no significant radiation to speak of, but you have the fusion reactors
Sure.
available,
Oh
right? So
no, fusion
yeah.
reaction would be one amazing and two way too expensive and stupid. So that's my quick
Yeah,
like
but maybe the outcome would be that there is a guy in a warehouse that kind of figures it out with some AI co-pilots that kind of
room
there's a few
temperature. I'm
projects.
into room temperature
Yeah,
fusion. Let's say
yeah,
is
yeah,
great.
exactly.
It's
Not
never
not
gonna happen,
yeah,
but
not obviously not the way the Europeans are doing this, where they are dumping like billions and billions into that huge tokamak style reactor
isn't
that
it
is
like
gonna
in the
work
50 to 100 to even 200 billion? I mean, it is extremely expensive, right?
Yeah, at this time, probably nobody's
Okay, so
dumping.
moon landing
Yeah,
level stuff, right?
exactly. Yeah, and it's still 10 years away from being
Sure.
started, right? But some guy in a warehouse may come up with. So there is guys that are shooting little bullets, at the hydrogen cell and trying to compress it, or there's some guys that are kind of shooting laser beams at this, and maybe some of this thing will work. So if, let's say, AI contributed to something like that, right? Then it would be a major thing, because then it's
Sure.
going to
Yeah.
be, so trickle down. I don't think it's going to be a Skynet, although I may be very, very wrong about this, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that places like Palantir and Department of Defense, probably they are working on kind of Skynets, if not already running something like that. So I don't know, but they don't have probably the cyber physical infrastructure for the terminators to start running around and taking care of business, right? But the trickle down effect
Oh,
may
they
be
but
kind of
they
an
definitely could
avalanche.
and will. I mean, they
Mhm.
can and will have decision making lethal weapons, which
Mm.
go figure, probably beyond
Yeah.
us being able, but is that a use of AI as much as I don't even know that our world of AI to me is a qualitative world. Let's just put it that way. I know machine
Mm.
learning, it's great and whatever, recognizing foes, how's that, right? Like
Mm.
you can obviously tell by someone's appearance whether they're a friend or a foe. Or you can tell whether they're a lamppost or a human, which is probably all they're really trained to do, right? Is to differentiate maybe who knows again, but that's all ML garbage, right? AI would be how do we win this war? right? I would say it's more strategic, or you can disagree with me, but that's certainly my take.
Well, I think the AI is, going to change the tactical stuff as well, right? Like, the concept of an, 15, $20 billion aircraft carrier that is just a giant target, right? That can be attacked by so many different swarms of drones that are kind of like $1,000 each, maybe put together in a tent, right? And the only protection from that kind of an attack is shooting multi-billion-dollar missiles that are in short supply, right? So the AI is going to change all of that, right? So I think that, I just read something interesting that, there's discussion about restoring the old battleships from World War II, the Iowa classes, or whatever is available still, because because the armor on those things kind of makes it somewhat resistant to all those, very basic drone attacks that could be swarming, otherwise extremely sophisticated, Aegis, missile systems and whatever, and kind of rendering them very quickly, useless. So yeah, so there's kind of interesting things, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to see anything that is maybe not an extension of existing AI research, which is autonomous agents transitioning into robotics, where the battlefield is robotic and kind of unmanned vehicles mostly, right? Nobody needs anybody to sit in a ditch and being exposed to artillery fire that is going to kind of target anybody, with a precision of inches, right, or centimeters. I mean, who needs anything like that, right? I mean, you need a soldier being exposed to that, or a soldier in a tank, right? We just saw in Ukraine, how everything got redefined, where the top of the line tanks were destroyed by mediocre, basically. Very basic drone technology. So you have $100 million tank that is maybe optimized towards some sort of a missile kind of protection, but then you have a drone that is kind of falling on it and igniting it, and it's just kind of totally useless thing. So you have so if you are a tank, you're a target. If you are a ditch, you're a target. If you are in a aircraft carrier, you're a target. And aircraft and the Air Force knows this very well. I mean, that probably the Tom Clancy kind of novels kind of describe this very well. So if the Top Gun movies are not very truthful, the truthful usage of an air power is that you basically bring your aircraft to the maximum range of your weapons, you release your weapon and you get out of there, because in a moment you will be swarmed by enemy countermeasures. So that's kind of the warfare. So it's kind of showing exactly what's going on, right? You want to get out of there, and maybe unmanned systems will be there, and if they have autonomy, intelligence, all that stuff, that's going to be the game changer, right? But not a person in F-22. That is not a good idea. Or a person in an aircraft carrier being exposed to all this, probably not a good idea as of today. So you can see.
No,
where
that
this is
makes
going.
sense. I mean, certainly we've had a few airline issues, right? But we still pretty
Yeah.
much rely upon for at least takeoff and landing a pretty skilled set of eyes and redundancies of training and so forth. And I think, I love to go down this idea of automation, because what I learned, and I think you might know better than me, is that the current models are actually not good enough for some agentic learning, right? They are actually, they fall apart. They're too brittle for a concept like robot. At least my example was knocking over a glass. Like, in order to understand that your action had a negative outcome and that you need to retrain your model to not knock over the glass, is now insurmountable with current models, right? It doesn't work like that, right? It doesn't have any sort of cause and effect. So even these warrior robots that we can imagine, right, They don't have any, um, again, their purpose is nebulous, right? I mean, certainly you can just kill a lot of things, which is terrible, right? But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
idea that it would act agentically, like a fighter pilot might choose. I don't know what fighter pilots do, but let's say they have some range of choices to make, and they might make a good or a bad choice. I don't know. I mean, every time I watch Tom Cruise, he makes really terrible choices and somehow gets away with it. So let's not let's
Yeah.
not use that as a example. But if we wanted to get into this idea of replacing humans, which I think is still a fun topic, right? Because we talk about productivity, we can do that one too. But if you're just in this world of, hey, everyone kind of can easily imagine, and they even wasn't it OpenAI showed this weird ass robot getting somebody tea. I don't know if that, it seemed like half the things you seem like um, AI making them up. So when you're actually watching it, you're like, hey, go get me a tea towel. And then the thing goes over and somehow manages to not get the pepper shaker and not get the fish bowl, but gets the tea towel, and then there's like, it's a miracle. See what I mean? Like, okay, you've used probably every technique known to man to not pick up the fish bowl.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's still, to me, I mean, like you just said, uh, what's the word? Resourcefulness is going to win every single time, and that's not resourceful, right? It's not resourceful to teach robots to be humans. I just don't get it. I can see if your job is extremely repetitive, but we've already done all that, right? Like, humans can do these sort of agentic things, which is decision making that machines can't. So
Yeah,
prove me
yeah.
wrong. I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's a few things that we can unpack here. Like the role of a robot in a corporation, is definitely kind of an interesting question, and or the role of an AI system, right, in a corporation is okay. So we have several layers. So a robot in an office, I don't know, maybe. I mean, do you
Well,
need to
we used to have these, by the way, in Accenture. We had these little people. They weren't robots, but they were little what do they call it? Video monitors. So the person could actually roam the halls and have conversations with people, even though they were in Buenos Aires. But unfortunately, this is Accenture's business model, right? Which is to get everything out of being in high cost areas and into low cost areas. So
Yeah.
fine, but it wasn't a robot, which is, I guess, it still seems very high cost unless you're amateurizing. I don't know how the hell you're amateurizing that crap, but keep going.
Yeah, so maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a greeter robot. Maybe you need a robot that is going to be in a meeting, that is going to be maybe moderating, maybe kind of, I don't know, maybe somebody like a kind of HAL 9000 that is going to be maybe kind of having a little bit of a cloud of mystery to it, and I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there is something there, right? But then there's robots in kind of frontline situations, like a robot in a fire department that is going to walk into a burning house and maybe look if there is any people trapped in there. Great idea, right? There is no question about it, right? If there is a
I'd
robot,
say
maybe.
completely not worth it. You know what I mean? It would be such. It would have to be ubiquitous and completely reliable, which the only thing we can do in that way is hire people that we keep happy and keep trained to do it. Do you see what I mean? Like, people are much more reliable than any machine, even in dangerous situations. In my opinion.
But I mean, there's certain value to not sending a firefighter into a very dangerous situation where maybe the roof is about to collapse, and there's really danger there, right? So I think this is kind of a lofty goal, I would say. Then there
Yeah,
is
I think that's fusion right there, because it's like the scenario in which it's useful is so rare, because then they'd have to actually rescue somebody in the collapsing building and not just just destroy the robot in the process and the people, which would be the most
Yeah.
likely
So
outcome, right? So
it will be tricky.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
obviously.
I would say people who made those robots could really cash in, and that's my cynicism right there, which is you can easily sell this crap and actually divert funds away from real people, like they are doing exactly right now. Apparently, they fired all the park rangers, which I'm like, dudes, who the heck's supposed to keep these places safe? They're nature, for God's sake. They don't run themselves. And you have apparently people who are willing to do it and are probably quite good at it. I would, and I'm happy to have them there, right? But when you get rid of them, what problem are you solving?
Well, I'm pretty sure that somebody like Elon Musk came up with an idea that, hey, we can have those drones gonna be flying around, and if something is going on, we're gonna just have one guy that is going to go to a area of a problem and fix it, right? Well, maybe it's going to be again, somebody is running a campfire in the wrong place or something, so we don't need the rangers. We're just gonna have those drones monitoring. So I can see somebody like Elon kind of saying that, right? But
Who
then there
makes
is
drones? Because apparently drone manufacturing will be very, very popular.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Um, there is areas also like nuclear power plants. Like if the Fukushima, the whole problem with Fukushima happened because there was some valves that needed to be kind of turn over, and there was already very high radiation there, and couldn't get there. That's why the hydrogen exploded. I think there's
Oh,
something also to have,
wasn't there a
in
tsunami?
reactor
Anyway,
that
but
yeah,
I thought it
in
was
a
a tsunami.
reactor
Oh, okay.
that was the reason, right? It kind of knocked out all the power, that supplies energy to the cooling systems, and that's why Fukushima exploded, right? But if you had those robots, maybe there was a way to mitigate those dangers. So again, maybe kind of a firefighting slash kind of dangerous radiation kind of situations. Could be a good scenario. Another scenario is underwater work, right? There's a lot of kind of
Sure. But I guess our
situations
question is
where
they don't have to be agentic. They don't have to know anything. They can just be remote controlled. Again, they could just be proxies, I guess, if they had some capability. You saw
well
Alien 2. Come on, it's that big machine with the person in it, right?
Actually, if you are welding something, for example, right, it's very difficult to control the welding process through a joystick. So ideally, you would like to have maybe some sort of a
Okay.
autonomy there that will enable the robot to position everything correctly, and then depending on the situation, kind of do the welding appropriately, or the cutting, or whatever. So not everything can be done through a joystick, right? So, but yeah, you are right. A lot of it can be. Like the process of walking through a rubble, right? Like say, like in Fukushima, being able to navigate. Maybe something kind of got destroyed. So the floor is no longer even, or there is no staircase. So maybe you have to figure something out. That is something that is very difficult to do through a joystick, or a remote operation. So having a robot that has legs, or threads, or whatever, that can do autonomous stuff is definitely very, very useful, and AI can do that really effectively now, I think.
Okay. Well. Okay. So in this case, AI can handle some problems. Agentic to me is learning. That's all. You have to actually learn how to do stuff. By learning, you have to make mistakes. So you're actually going to go in and you're going to fall over a lot. That's
Well,
that's
the
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 Hmm?
definition of agentic stuff in AI is a little bit different. So it's not
Okay.
about the learning. About learning. Maybe you already have a system that has been trained, but the definition of an agent kind of goes more into being able to process inputs. So there's like a sensing component to it, and being able to also communicate with the outside world, maybe other agents, right, or maybe the operators, or whoever, right. So the agentic stuff is more kind of like in and out kind of information exchanges, where with the assumption that the model, the machine learning maybe already happened, right. So, but obviously learning component can be there as well.
Well, and maybe I'm focusing solely on the learning component because I'm not interested in ML as much because that, happens to do with probably more of a background, job, that you've trained on everything. So now we've got OpenAI, or sorry, we've got verbal AI or whatever we're going to call it, right? Verbal imagery, that kind of thing, AI. And its flaws are what it's trained on, right? It doesn't know what it wasn't trained on, but it's not bad at guessing, right? Because it's like us, we have very limited amounts of knowledge, but we guess, we see things in a way, back to the I can probably tie this into our what temperature is it, right? We have certain norms that we appreciate or don't appreciate, right? Changes in temperature that aren't real to language, but it's real to us, right? It's or danger is probably even more interesting as a thing that people would understand, but a um, uh, uh, text couldn't understand it, right? Peril. I even actually I just got this from OpenAI. Like it really doesn't understand action that much, right? It does not really comprehend cause and effect, right? It can
But I
mimic it,
think
but it doesn't, you know what I mean? That's like all of life is cause and effect.
I think that this is really kind of changing quite a bit, and I'm not really a big fan of the concept that the AI really needs to like truly understand this, like really in depth. Like I mean, first of all, it's very difficult to define what is a true understanding versus superficial understanding. What I know for sure is that I can ask the AI to explain the concept to me, either verbally or through building a knowledge graph or semantic network, and it will do a great job, probably better than 90% of humans, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so
Right.
this
Yeah.
this argument about, the AI truly doesn't understand what it looks like, it looks at, maybe is a little bit kind of like yes, it's true, but it really is a moot point, right? Because it can do everything else kind of through a simulation or whatever that is really there. Like, is the simulation the real thing, or a simulation is not the real thing, but if it is close enough, it's good enough for us to kind of look at, right? So kind of coming back to the idea now, if the AI is kind of going in that direction, then we are really looking at agentic processes that can create this kind of like interconnection between multiple models, right? So it's not just going to be one model, like OpenAI is going to have one model, and then Google will have, whatever, Claude or whatever, Anthropic, all those things now can start connecting and start chatting together and
Mm.
start improving themselves. Because if, let's say, we used all the data that is available for training, the next thing is going to be synthetic data or some sort of an interactive stuff that we will be able to kind of do. So I think the next big thing is, okay, yes, still, the understanding, okay, I get it, but now we're going to have like a good model that can kind of simulate understanding, and then another good model that can simulate understanding, and now they can start talking to each other, and then maybe kind of coming up with experiments that we didn't think about, that will do a self-improvement, like
Sure.
so if that's the case, that self-improvement is going to be a big deal, because now we will have, maybe conversation that we are not privy to, because maybe they will create a protocol between, those models that we really don't understand, but they will understand. Maybe it's going to be, it's going to be vector based, right? So it's still going to be either tokens or vectors or embeddings that will be exchanged. So we are not interested at looking at those the same way we are not interested at looking at assembly language code or machine code, but those things will start happening, and that will be maybe another big thing that we will be looking at maybe next year already, or if not this year.
Well, let me see if I understand correctly. So the idea that yes, the models themselves are, let's say, getting not necessarily self-aware, which is kind of weird, right? But they can improve, right? That's actually the whole plus of why I don't like ML is ML's improvement is, probably accuracy toward a test. And I think that's what the Microsoft guy was saying. It's like people are just gaming the test at this point, right? Like,
Mhm.
here's some proof that you are smart. And as we all know, just it tends to be brittle, right? Because, hey, great, this particular test for your example, what do you think of, or for an example, we talk about this person who's receiving someone at the door, right? I mean, here's a actual job, and I've seen it done really well because I've known people that are in a sense the face of a company, right? They're what you see when you come in. I can say there's probably some archetypes. Maybe it's always female. I'm not sure. There's certain age groups. There's certain signifiers that, whether we like it or not, come with this position. But what I'm curious is, and this is why I think we're still talking about productivity for some reason, but forgive me, is replacement, right? If you could teach AI to do that job, right? Could you train it to do that job? And could it do it? Because of course, like with anyone, we're both educators, right? We're training people, not necessarily do a job. We're training them in, here's what the company's about. Here's the way you should look. Here's the way you should greet. And by the way, once you know all the people inside the door, their likes and dislikes. You might know how to get in touch. Who knows? You might learn something about that environment that helps you do that job. And so therefore you could tell AI those things, right? Bill has lots of visitors. I don't know. People like to have coffee. Whatever again, this is a actually fairly basic but complicated job, right? In terms of its training. And one thing it doesn't need is what generative AI is good at. You know what I mean? Like, what are the edge cases that it could handle? Or I don't know, why do I keep wondering about this word agentic, right? Like you just said, I can weld underwater. I'm really good at it because I can perceive welds really well, and I don't need glasses, and I don't care that I'm underwater. And this weld that I'm gonna do only is gonna cost you $2 to $3 million to build this machine to do it. But this other person will do it for like $5,000 or whatever a person would do, and their weld would be fine. You see what I mean? Let's hope, right? If they're going to be in the underwater welding business. And what that thing is that I'm truly pissed, about this idea of being replaced. I truly think that that's the misuse of this technology right now, right? I think, I had it in my last article where people were kind of mad at me because I talked about replacing coders, which they should all be replaced, honestly. Screw all them. But well, because I don't want a coder, I want a thinker, right? The point is you're supposed to be a problem solver. Coding is just like, hey, woodwork or pie baking, right? Like I can be the best pie baker, but I still have to build a market for my pies, sell my pies, you see what I mean? Or give my pies to somebody to appreciate. Those are all complicated things to do. Making the pie is the fun part, or maybe, you see what I mean? Whereas marketing and getting people to like your pies, again, that's not a problem you can teach somebody to solve, right? You could maybe teach it to do your accounting. Maybe. Actually, I'm looking forward this year to having it do my accounting. I'm going to definitely be trying GPT to categorize all of my different expenses. How's that? So,
that's great.
I trust it to do that, but I don't trust it to be an accountant. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. Where do you think? Did I get anywhere with that one in your estimation, Jack?
Definitely. These are kind of existential questions for you and I, and also for our kids and grandkids.
Absolutely.
Is the corporate model where we are optimizing, the cost, going to prevail? So there's going to be an Elon Musk type, like a polymath that is going to say, come on, guys, we are replacing you with robots so that you can do there's a million of other things that you can do. Right?
With the lack of income that provides, yes.
Yeah, you will be able to free your mind and maybe do anything you can dream of, right? Like, so there's gonna be guys like that that's gonna, and they probably believe deep down, believe in that statement because they are they're gonna be this type of a person that is gonna be very entrepreneurial and very kind of like extremely successful, and pretty much everything that they touch is turning into gold. So I think that they will believe that firmly, right? But then there's going to be a maybe a paralegal, somebody like a truck driver, right? Maybe not necessarily a programmer, right? But somebody who was driving a truck for 20 years and will be replaced by an autonomous system, and then. Are we going to tell this truck driver, hey, you have so many opportunities to not to do your boring job, and your back is not going to be aching from sitting 10 hours a day behind the wheel. You're going to be able whatever you can dream of, and that's a problem, because I don't think that's possible. So
oh, by the way, I can give you the exact antidote, since I worked in trucking. By the way, they really like the driving part is the fun part. It's the making pie part. What is problematic with trucking is not driving. It's getting stuff in and out of the truck, which is actually extremely difficult. You would not believe, in fact, it's called detention. You're in line waiting often for no pay to just get the stuff in and out. So it's actually the transference of stuff that is the real pain, and why you need people, because they have to manage that part, right? The actual driving, again, is fun. Sorry to interrupt, but do you see what I mean?
Exactly,
like that's kind of telling, right? We don't mind boring jobs. Come on, we wouldn't be a civilization if we didn't have mindless, boring jobs, but they pay. That's what was so fun about them, right? We don't have to be geniuses. I don't think that was ever in the cards, right? In fact, I would probably gladly replace Musk with AI. I think AI would be a lot nicer, than that human being, because the abilities are pretty easily mimicked by AI. You see what I mean? Be a blowhard, talk a lot, throw out factoids, but probably more correct ones, or maybe more well-reasoned ones, because it would have a better training, wouldn't have all the biases. But that I don't think that model, for me at least, that's the Wizard of Oz model, right? There's somebody behind the scenes, and then this is just show. This is just for show, right? And the show part is entertaining and interesting and compelling. But
it is
if
very
behind the
compelling.
scenes, if behind the scenes is ignorance or deceit, is one thing, or if it's AI, it's actually kind of better, right? Because it to me still is not yet able to do deceit very well, probably due to its training, right? But I don't know.
So there is this in-between model where there is the co-pilot model, right? Like, hey, there's you have your job, but you have that co-pilot that is gonna make you like 100 times more efficient, right? And but what it means in the corporate environment is that you are this 100% more efficient, or 100 times or whatever with the copilot. So they still have to pay you, right? And then they still have to pay for the copilot. And for the bean counters,
but hold for a second. Isn't it ironic? You're 100 times more productive, but yet, unfortunately, we still have to pay you. Whereas I'm like, why aren't we paying you 100 times more?
Exactly. So the bean counters are not going to have that kind of level of insight into what's going on, because there is always going to be, we have raising costs, or we have everything else going on. So that co-pilot or co-robotics or co-batics model is I'm afraid that it's going to be just a stepping stone to get the AI up to par, so that it's learning from you by watching you, and then at the end of the day, it's just going to be AI that is going to be replacing people. I think that's a very real scenario.
I think that's real too. Now, by the way, that would be an actually great PhD. Has anyone ever tried to just keystroke or monitor, I guess if you had good data, right, the doings of someone over a longer period of time, and then try to recreate them? It seems possible to do that, right? I mean, as an experiment.
There was quite a few dissertations on kind of like user profiling, where the basic applications, like how people use email and how people respond to questions. So that was kind of, I've read quite a few things before the generative AI happened. So yeah, I can imagine those papers are already
this was pre-generative AI, right?
Yes, yeah, oh yeah.
Well, because we're both educators, right? Or in education adjacent worlds, we feel as though, I keep thinking my role in a weird way isn't very AI friendly, right? Like I wish I could sort of force multiply myself, but I'm also extremely engaged with a lot of tools that help me force multiply already, right? They still take attention, but they minimize a lot of things like just fussing around, right? I don't have to do a lot of that. I still have to grade papers, which I actually I got GPT to assess papers last time, and it's okay. You know what I mean? I'm still basically, I'm the arbiter. I get to be the Musk type, right? Like I know all and can say all, and I get to give you your grade, right? But I still put, that there's again, this possibility of what can you augment? Is it just code right now? I mean, that's funny if we could go back to Microsoft, right? I mean, it could make a PowerPoint for you, but I doubt anyone is making that happen. Spent half of my life trying to get people to use PowerPoint templates so that they could have a decent looking presentation, and I'm admiring you because I know you have very nice presentations, but you know what, the work that goes into that, right? To make your point. And I don't think you would put that to Gen AI. And you're even working in very generative AI friendly confines. Do people get to offload their work in some ways to Gen AI, such as status reports or something? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, tell me about it.
Quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. So people are documenting their code, like so. So there's a lot of kind of reports that I'm hearing from people who are kind of like system administrators or developing code developers, and they are using AI to actually communicate with other teams what's going on, create reports, kind of evaluate how much time it takes to get something done, and that informs Jira and all those other systems. So yeah, so project management is very highly impacted nowadays, and the same applies to.
You're saying for the better, or is it about the same? See, I'm just saying I don't think project management's an artifact, right? It's just a throwaway, I think, right?
It kind of depends, right? I mean, a typical system developer may not be very big on writing descriptions of their code, right? But now it's easy to do, right? Like for example, the best practices are, from my perspective, that in software engineering, you should start developing system by writing code, right? Something like a structure of prompts that would kind of generate your code. So
Jack, it's supposed to be test. Yeah. Test first. TDD. Come on.
But
anyway, but keep going.
Nobody does that, right? So
well, actually, TDD would be much easier with generative AI.
Yeah. So on the development side, there is a lot, and there is also on the kind of like support side, there's AI that can look at tickets now and assign them efficiently, or maybe even solve your problem. So instead of having a ticket that goes to a dev, you have the ticket that can be answered by the AI.
Okay, but hold on. So you're saying that rather than to express things in English, coders are now using Gen AI to write what they write in code in English. Now, this seems completely backwards to me. Like, that's how bad they are at writing English, then isn't that also going to be destabilizing, right?
Well, I think there is pressure. So I mean, there's obviously something to the person. Hey, I prefer to write code rather than English descriptions. But there is also, like a pressure.
Who? Anyway, who is? Yeah, are there people like that? Really?
Yeah, you not only always have the time to actually develop something properly. You are sometimes racing towards the deadline. So if that's the case, you are trying to kind of,
so they're making pies. They are 100% into the pie making focus, which is fine, right? They want to make the best pie they can, and everything else is secondary. Marketing, all that stuff I said that was hard, right? And that's where they leave in project managers, roadmaps, and all the strategic thinking that goes into why are you even here. I still think there's a negative there, right? I mean, if you are so that deeply ingrained in the act of just making, aren't you more vulnerable? Even though if Gen AI can take over, the telling your boss what you did today part, okay, but
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I think bosses weirdly enough know what people do, which is I'm not going to say on air. Right? But that's what I'm saying. It's a relationship, right? It's trust or non-trust. It doesn't come down to documentation unless you're getting written up or something.
well, there is certain level of complexities where all this kind of begins to make sense, right? I mean, there's complexities in multitasking, and even Elon said that one of the hardest part of his job is the cognitive load of multitasking. Like,
Yeah,
you have a
because by
really
the way,
complex.
humanly
Yeah,
impossible to do, by the way. It's,
yeah,
he should read a book. You cannot
exactly.
multitask. It's not a human
Yeah, and
ability.
the switch, right? I mean, the switch
Yes,
between,
exactly.
yeah, is
Yeah.
very very costly, right? It takes me. I feel like I'm working on several projects. Same take me really kind of like a lot of effort to switch from one type of a program that I'm writing to another type of a program that I'm writing.
Absolutely. And
Right?
and again,
So
that's
yeah,
human, right? It's only
yeah.
weirdly this new device that doesn't have problems context
Hmm.
switching.
Yeah, and a lot of solutions maybe don't require AI, right? Maybe if I was better organized myself, with better documentation that I myself wrote, maybe that cognitive load would be a lot smaller. But still,
Hmm.
sometimes it doesn't happen because maybe you were writing code for 5 6 hours and you really don't have any strength in your left to actually document what you did. So then there is a next day, and the next day starts, and then again you're racing towards the solution maybe, or a deadline. So at the end of the day, this is kind of complex, and then your bosses, as as intelligent or informed, or kind of maybe kind of like coming from the same positions, being promoted, so they understand what it takes. They may not see everything that we do, because there's this complexity that we are adding to every day, and that kind of is a vote for AI, because but not every single job is like that, right? So we kind of have to kind of really find a
Well, I mean, we
yeah.
can just say that our concepts around productivity are coming from an industrial setting that was happened 100 years ago or whatever, right? When we started to be able to take things and piece them into doable jobs. What you just said a moment ago is stunning to me, that you could spend 4 hours coding. I assume, at least from my perspective, that 3 hours of that are failing to getting a good result. And then maybe a part of it is getting some better result. And because you can arbitrate uh, good and bad, that's your
Hmm.
value, right? Like you could just say, like you could get it done, right? If it was hey, how many lines of code did you write? Well, I wrote 300. Well, I wrote 350. You see what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you can get it done, but if you have no taste,
Hmm.
right? If you don't have any ability to see good work versus poor work, then that's what I'm guessing is what I do with AI. Like it's most of its ideas are fine, but they're not great. And then I work with it and it helps me sort of work a little faster and to your point, not have to do as much context switching, which I love
Hmm.
to do because I always come up with some other idea and I want to go explore it, right? Like shiny objects are very fun for me, as I'm assuming they are for everybody else, right? Like everybody loves novelty in their day. And if
Hmm.
you're spending or you're paid to be productive for 8 hours a day, I don't think that that's been realistic for probably 30 years. Because
Hmm.
remember, at some point in time, someone had to take a piece of paper that you wrote on and put your name on and said that you read and file it away along with some status. And do you even remember the days of paper?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Very
was
well.
an
Yeah.
enormous amount of positions that just moved paper around. Even
Mm,
my son right now, by the way, is in the mailroom moving pieces of paper around, or mainly packages from Amazon.
mm,
But that's interesting, right? That just the amount of work that was, in a sense, making pies was extremely valuable because otherwise,
mm,
how else would you get it done? I find even now, I don't think anyone, I'm going to say nobody has ever had an organized computer. Nobody's files have been properly, formatted and labeled.
mm.
What do you think? How far off am I? When you have zero, I'm talking zero consistency.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a moving target. Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
GitHub where you're supposed to apply the rules, right? You're
Mm,
supposed to use the conventions. You're supposed to do this, that, there's supposed to be overarching structure to the things that you do. I think people are
mm.
still vaguely unorganized. I mean, that's just goes with the territory of being a person, doesn't it?
Yeah. 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 That's yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Not
only saying
sure.
that
Not
because I
sure.
teach organization for a living, and I'm just like, I don't think organizing things is something that comes naturally. I think it takes work.
Yeah. Exactly. That's for sure. Yeah.
And once you've done it, the only beneficiary is you, like you said. You're the one to be going like, oh, I remember that thing.
Mm,
And maybe now that we have this keystroke monitor, maybe you get a year of Jack working,
mm,
and then you can model what Jack does. But then
mm.
again, maybe you would improve it, right? I still think it's just easier to help Jack rather than replace Jack. How's that for an ending?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I think it's a very good ending, even though, I think we have another talk that was kind of negative in nature. So I don't know. I mean, probably we have a little bit of a
Well,
kind
give
of
give me your give
cana
me your positive. You
conundrum.
you think that what Jack does Jack could spend his time in doing better things. I guess that's the contrast.
Well, I would like, maybe the big AI to kind of materialize so that, we have the fusion and we have, maybe the economic model is going to change, right? Because maybe if there is breakthroughs in such in kind of key areas, maybe it's going to be possible for us to keep our jobs because it's going to be a different social contract, maybe different environment, and it's really for those of us, right, that kind of would like to be creative, there is going to be a possibility to do that rather than maybe kind of try to survive and struggle, and thinking also about my kids, and grandkids, so I don't know. I think that I'm hoping that the big AI there, AGI, the super AI will materialize, because if it
Hmm.
doesn't, the current AI that we have is going to be a replacement AI. It's going to be good
Hmm.
enough to replace us, but it's going to be not enough to actually allow the corporations to kind of forget about the balance sheets, or maybe some other create some sort of other economic mechanisms to really kind of support people who want to be creative and who want to do something, right? So that's kind of my feeling.
I think we're closer than you think. I mean, in terms of our opinion, because I still think that with these tools, you've considerably lessened the cost of experimentation. That's all I can say. I mean, that's to me the whole point. If you're an experimental person, which to me is a creative thing, right? You don't fear failure. If you're creative, you
Mm,
shouldn't fear failure, right? Because I tell you, it's all bad pies. It's adequate pies, but to make a really good
mm,
pie, you see what I mean? You have to work really
mm.
hard. And
Yeah.
and I respect that because a lot of people find that very disheartening, right? That perfection, going to the next level, this creating fusion thing obviously takes a lot of really good luck, weirdly enough, right? To If you
Mm,
were able to do this, it would probably be more luck based than design based. That you got the right people at the right time. It
yeah.
just so happened
Mm,
that it worked out, right? But back to our kids and grandkids, I think that has to be the future discussion for next week, perhaps,
All right.
if you're feeling better. I certainly
Yeah.
don't have any illusion that there's anything's going to happen that quickly. I happen to know how big companies work, and I'm glad that you're finding use in it in where you're working, because that's actually the first step, right? Is to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. So let's reconvene next week and kind of attack another dimension of all this AI stuff.
I think it's still the what do you do with it now part. We'll see. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. See you next week.
And scene. Do you think it was really that bad? I thought I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, sounded negative. I don't know. Okay, it's kind of my feelings.
I could try to put more spin, happiness spin. What? So I can rewrite this in a better way. What should I avoid? Because the cynicism I have toward. Well, as I said, I don't know what leadership is going to be like. Leadership, I think, currently is terrible, right? Like there are very, very few leaders that seem to be realistic about anything but corporate profits, right? They don't really seem to realize that I think a lot of people's only opportunity is to have a job, right? That's kind of the whole contract. And we're pretty sketchy on that in America already, right? You're not guaranteed anything. This isn't socialism or communism, right? You pretty much better do it or else. And you and I are pretty fortunate too.
What's the driver mechanism right now in the corporate world? Where the driver mechanism is that the CEO goes in front of the board at the end of the fiscal year, shows the balance sheet, shows the stock market price, and if it is good, then gonna get $100 million bonus, and if it is not good, it's not gonna get $100 million bonus. Where in that process is any kind of consideration for all these things that we are talking about? Zero, none. There's absolutely no place, right? So until that changes through some sort of a massive, overwhelming abundance of something else, then this process will continue, and the AI is going to be applied the same way, like a hammer or a wrench. And unfortunately, it's not sounding too good, right?
Well, it's still coming from the geek world. How's that, right? I mean, we're still we're not microscopic, we're, insular. And if you were in like my friend just got his I don't know if I told you, my friend at Fermilab just got the world's largest magnet. He's ready to pull together this team to build an experiment to understand some stupid shit about physics, right? And all of his funding was just cut, right? So now there's this enormous magnet lying around. And to me, my thought was, well, one, I don't know what the hell you were doing anyway, right? None of us really do when it comes to some of these very big, crazy ass things, right? And study in this way, it seems easy to get rid of, but what isn't easy to get rid of is the context, right? Like you've set this up to have some sort of outcome. And I think what I'm worried about AI, maybe we can talk about this next week, or we can find some stuff about it, is what's the freaking plan? AGI better not be the freaking plan, is it? Is that why these people are in business?
Oh yeah. They are in business because GPT-5.
It's not measurable. It doesn't exist. It doesn't have a measure. How can you have AGI? It doesn't. What is it?
No. It has very, very tangible measures. There's test banks and test sets. Ranging from legal bar exams and math exams and all that.
It already passed all those. It's already 80 percentile. But right, what do you have to be 100%? You have to make up the tests. Is that?
Yeah. So no. So the tests is going to be applying the AI to hard problems now, right? Not the test, but applying to hard problems, like in the pharmaceutical world, in the genetic world, in the physics world. So that's going to be the next thing, because suddenly you will have a capability to make a bigger bomb or something like that. So it's extremely tangible right now, subject matter of race. So I don't know.
I
Maybe
mean,
yeah.
that doesn't seem like there would be. I'm going to send it to you, and maybe you're already a fan, but do you know the guy who invented the blue LED?
No, I don't think
I'll
so.
find it and I'll send it to you. But you know that this is the most significant discovery, like maybe of our lifetimes.
Yeah, the OLED screen. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. I mean, you're right. You wouldn't have the ability to reproduce color if you couldn't. And blue LEDs were extremely problematic to figure out.
Mm,
And it
mm,
took, like I just said, this person basically given a free check from the
mm,
Japanese company he worked for, complete autonomy for, I think, 10 years to work on it.
mm. Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, okay, what the fuck is AI gonna ever do, right? Tell somebody to do something? You see what I mean? Like this actual thing
Mm,
required so much knowledge of physical properties, and you had to have machines to do it anyway, right? Like it wasn't something that
mm.
it becomes, at least I keep calling it agentic, right? You have to exist in the real world, which I'm
Yeah, yeah,
like, you're not prepared and you never will be. Zero, not gonna
yeah.
happen. But you could influence somebody,
Mm.
right? You could be the Wizard of
Of course.
Oz,
Mm,
um,
mm.
or Cyrano de Bergerac. How's that? Is that better? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that still is weird because you're just a proxy then, And I still think being a proxy for some things. Well, either way, I'm already can tell I'm over stressing my
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, there is a group of people that say that it's extremely easy to make money nowadays. So maybe
Yeah,
maybe
maybe.
you and I should kind of think about this business idea and really kind of get going there. But I think that traditional the traditional approaches through corporations or educational institutions,
Mm.
those going to start fading. I think, unfortunately.
I think that's always good. Yeah, I think the idea of being able to educate yourself through dialogue, I'm still working on it and
Mm,
I'm not doing very well. So maybe that's
mm,
a
mm.
better thing because I think dialogue is almost the Wizard of Oz. People react so much differently to voice than they do reading.
Yeah, but unfortunately, kids, who saw movies like, Ready Player One or something like that, they don't want dialogues. They want full immersion into kind of like a, virtual environments, and then they're gonna kind of, you know,
We
fight
could
the
talk
aliens.
we could talk roguelites, that's a thing, right? Like
Yeah.
the roguelite architecture is not necessarily against generative AI. I mean, it in a sense is, right? You're just telling the world how to behave and then
Mm,
create the world based on these rules.
mm.
And these rules,
Yeah.
there's also another game where all the opponents are AI, but they literally don't have to pay attention to you. I think it's called Rain World or something. But I saw a thing. It was really interesting because they all have agendas.
Mm,
And that's what's interesting is you don't come in and their agenda isn't necessarily to battle you. You're just food
mm,
and they're doing their best to find food or doing whatever, right? So they all have ideas and you're of course more trying to get from here to there or whatever, right? Um,
mm,
but instead of, some of the normal dynamics, yeah, let's do games, man, because still
all
the
right.
the point of learning is games, right? It has to go
Mm,
there. It has to happen. Will
mm,
work become games? Why not? Right?
mm,
I still think, if you had a leaderboard, have you ever worked in a company? I had a company once with a leaderboard, which
mm.
was, they measured you based on some kind of damn thing. And look at you, you're right up there on the leaderboard.
Yeah. How many times you clicked during the day?
I think this is where you need to come in because you're like,
Mm,
well, if AGI does understand anything, could it rate your performance?
mm,
That's completely fascinating, right? Like
mm,
that somehow Jack's performance review could be done by the AI and the AI could tell you how to improve. Now already thinking like, wait a second, it doesn't talk back or say no, or doesn't seem to care about you, right? Well, what if it did? I mean, I'm sure you could prompt it to, right? I'm certain there's some self-help things we didn't yet develop when we were at Student Uplip, right? Where it could be more of a coach. But I don't know. You know, this is weird. That's why, yeah, AI is coach. How's that for next time?
All right. Yeah, sounds like a good topic.
See what you can find. I'll do the same, and we'll see if we can find something. I still think productivity, we only scratched the surface, but I don't know. By the way, a lot of comments, a lot of appreciation of what we're sharing. So at least some people seem to like it.
All right. Yeah. Good. Great.
I hope.
Great.
We'll see. I'm also getting promoted in Medium, so that helps. You get a lot more views.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you're gonna be kind of you know what you're gonna be kind of like what's gonna be the level, you know, ultimate level of performance, or you know.
Well, I think it's a microcosm of this topic. What if AI was your coach? You know, I mean, that's what your kid should have, right? That's what all kids should have. A omnipresent coach that's there all the time and has some sort of agenda, right, that they want you to achieve. In fact, we already said, why not get rid of bosses? Because what the hell do they do, right? I mean,
all right. But you know, if there is like a Joe Rogan invite, you go. I don't go to Joe Rogan.
No, Jack. This is what they call the long burn, you know. As we both learned, we both love making pies, Jack. We don't like marketing and selling pies. That's the real trick. But maybe we can, at least I've gotten Medium to promote me. How's that? So their algorithm now likes me a little more than it did before.
Very cool.
I know. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it's AI. Oh.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. Anyway, appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for putting up with me.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
All right.
No problem. Yeah. Talk
Cheers.
to you soon.